What's up? It's Billy Briz, aka at Getting Bills, and I'm joined by my main man, Brady, DFS by the numbers, coming fresh off a Las Vegas trip. I'm glad to see that he isn't on a yacht somewhere out in the middle of the ocean, and we got Brady back. Brady, how is your week 4 going for NFL so far?
It's pretty good. It was hard to wake up, to be honest. I wish I could have slept all day. Vegas took a lot out of me, but I got up, did all my research, and I'm ready to go. Looking forward to week 4. Should be a very interesting week. There's a lot of injuries we got to monitor. We'll probably touch on those Friday as well, but yeah, I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, this slate is definitely one of those slates where I feel like this video is going to be a little bit quicker than we usually do just because there's so many injury news to follow. Big ones would be like Dalvin Cook, see if Alexander Madison's in play again this week, and just different stuff like that that's just really going to make the lay of the land. I felt like last week the Sunday morning injury news was very crucial to getting the right pieces in to be successful last week. Overall, though, how'd you do last week? Did you even play a lot of DFS considering you're in Vegas and in the middle of MMA week?
Yeah, so I didn't play much. What I did was I did one cash lineup and one like the $50 cash double up, and then I did the $50 single entry. The single hit, I thought it was going to make a ton of money. I was like top 100 throughout the 1 o'clock games. And then I had like Robert Woods and some other player left, and I was feeling like really good, like I'm going to make a ton of money. And then Robert Woods ends up scoring, I think, like 13 DraftKings points. My other guy scored like less than 10 as well. So still made some decent money in single, and then cash did not hit. Was really close. I had Woods as well in my cash lineup, and I had the opportunity to potentially switch and go up and get Madison and then change another player around. I decided not to do that and just roll with it, and that ended up costing me because I would have cashed pretty easily. But overall, slight profit. Can't really complain. Can't wait to get back into it this week and play more lineups. I guess I figured out that in Vegas you can actually change and edit lineups. I didn't know you could do that. So if I knew that, I probably would have played a lot more. But I wanted to be safe and just do 2 lineups there.
Yeah, definitely week 3 was a weird week. So, let's get into week 4, though. This week was kind of weird not seeing any teams on bye with the new NFL schedule, extra couple games added into the end of the season. So nobody's on bye this week. Let's go over to the quarterback position. I'm going to start off at the top with Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs quarterback. I feel like he's definitely due for a bounce back here. How bad is Mahomes really going to play back-to-back weeks? As you see right there, he hasn't really played too bad. If you look at week 1 against Cleveland, 36 DK points, Baltimore, 28 DK points, and the Chargers, where they looked really bad, and he only had 25 DK points. I think this is a great spot against the Philadelphia Eagles for Mahomes to bounce back. And the pass catchers definitely like to stack his pass catchers with that. We'll get into that in a little bit, though. Brady, who are you looking at the top of the quarterback position this week?
Josh Allen is back. I was worried about him. I was really worried about him, but we touched on it last week. Look at who he was playing. Pittsburgh has a very solid defense. Miami has a very solid defense. And then going against Washington, whose defense was supposed to be good this year, they're not good this year. And he went out there and he went off 40.22 DraftKings points, 4 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown as well. And now you're giving him a matchup against the Texans. I'm going right back to Josh Allen this week at 8,000. I like him here quite a bit. So many stacking options, right? You have Diggs, you have Beasley, even Emmanuel Sanders as well. So I'm going right back to Josh Allen. Like I said, week 1 and 2, I was a little bit scared, but then I took a look at who he was playing, and he was playing some really good teams. So right back to Josh Allen for me. I think he has another great week. I guess the only thing that concerns me, though, is they are 16-point favorites, which is, I believe, the highest on the year, actually. So if they do get up ahead, maybe they start running the ball, but I think they're going to have to get there in the first place. And I think Josh Allen has another opportunity to go out there and have a good game.
Yeah, I definitely will agree with that one as well. I'm kind of thinking about him and Mahomes going back and forth between the two. They're very close in price tags, $8,100 on DK for Mahomes and $8,000 for Allen, and somewhat comparable on FanDuel as well, $8,700 for Mahomes and $8,500 for Allen. Is there anybody else in the high tier that you're looking at the quarterback position this week?
High tier, not really, but I do like the $1,100 savings from Allen to Jalen Hurts. And for me, it's between Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts for cash. I like Hurts here going against Kansas City. 54-point total, which I believe is the second best on the slate. And, Hurts, maybe his completion percentage is not that great, but he's getting it done. 25.4 DraftKings points on average. He's able to run the ball as well, has 26 rushing attempts on the year. I like the floor that he brings, and Kansas City is dead last thus far in 3 weeks against opposing quarterbacks. So I think Hurts is going to have a lot of opportunities to score here, a lot of opportunities to score a lot of points. They're 7-point underdogs as well, so I do expect him to throw and try to play catch up here against the Chiefs. But yeah, I like Jalen Hurts quite a bit.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that one. I could definitely see Jalen Hurts being in some garbage time this week. We'll talk about a couple of his pass catchers that definitely caught my eye price tag wise. But in the mid-range, I really like Russell Wilson this week against the San Francisco 49ers. One thing betting wise that I've been doing is kind of fading these 49ers, and it's been kind of working out more times than not. Russell Wilson, the pass catchers that you're going to stack him with, and he's been playing pretty well. I think this is a pretty favorable matchup for him, and the price tag is pretty cheap as well, $7,100 and $7,700 on FanDuel. I would say Russell Wilson's kind of like my favorite mid-range option. Brady, any other mid-range options you're looking at besides Hurts?
Yeah, this one's interesting. So Matthew Stafford, I think, has been playing very well, averaging 26 DraftKings points per week, going against Arizona, 55-point total, which I think that's the highest on the slate there. So I do like that quite a bit. And Stafford, they are 4-point favorites. And, I really like the matchup here against Arizona. Great stacking options. Cooper Kupp, who I'm sure we're going to talk about, who's been dominant this year. Robert Woods, who's very cheap this week as well. And then also Higbee is a solid option to stack with. So I do like Stafford this week in terms of stacking him up. I love the stacking options, Kupp and Woods. I think Woods hopefully gets it together. I mean, he's not been playing terrible, but he hasn't had that big breakout game yet. Maybe it's this week, but yeah, I can't deny that Kupp's been phenomenal. I don't mind pairing up Stafford and Kupp this week.
Yeah, I definitely I don't know. I have a different take on that one. I kind of, if I did play a quarterback in that game, I kind of want to play Kyler Murray just based off the rushing floor. But that's just me. I would try to find the money there. But in the lower range, not really too much is popping out for me. Maybe you can help me out, Brady. Who are you looking at in the lower range?
This is very ugly, but the guy that does stick out to me is going to be one Sam Darnold going against Dallas. It is a 50.5-point total. He's 6K, right? No Christian McCaffrey, so I do expect him to focus on passing the ball. I love the Darnold and Moore stack this week. Moore is somebody that I'm definitely looking at in terms of a wide receiver, and it's ugly, but Darnold has been actually looking pretty good, right? Averaging 23.7 DraftKings points thus far. I think Darnold could be an interesting stack. Curious to see what his ownership's going to be, but you got to expect it's probably going to be low.
Yeah, I definitely don't blame you. I think when we talk about stacks on Friday, that's going to be a stack that is definitely going to go under the radar because there is a lot of good pieces in that game. But we're going to get into our first commercial break. Is there any other quarterbacks, though, before we get into this quick commercial break?
No, that's about it, man. I think for me, it's going to be a lot of Josh Allen and it's going to be a lot of Jalen Hurts. I think I'm just going to focus the most on those two this week.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pay up at quarterback, and if I get down into the 7Ks on FanDuel and DraftKings, I think I'm going to play Russell Wilson. When I made my first build in cash this week as a first look, Russell Wilson was the quarterback that I had in. But, I'm not going to be gung-ho on a lineup that I made on a Wednesday. We still got a lot of news to really dive into by Friday. But let's get into our first commercial break. Shouts to Manscaped. Make sure to get that lawnmower 4.0 and use promo code PubSportsRadio to get free shipping while you're checking out. I am here with Brady, aka DFS by Numbers. We are previewing Week 4 DraftKings and FanDuel. First look, kind of like how we're kind of building our player pools this week. So I'm gonna start it off at the most important position. Brady, who are you looking up to pay up for at the running back position this week?
Yeah, this week's hard, man, because I love a lot of these, expensive quarterbacks like a Josh Allen. I love a lot of these expensive wide receivers. I like Travis Kelce, who's also expensive. But for me, I'm really going to make it a priority to get Derrick Henry into my lineup going against the Jets here, 45-point total, where the Titans are 7.5-point favorites. I do like that positive game script for Henry. And when I am playing Henry, I'm always looking for that positive game script because, he typically doesn't get involved in the passing game all that much in the past, but we're seeing him with 12 receptions on the year, which is, phenomenal in terms of Derrick Henry. We don't usually expect that. And he's also averaging 31 total touches per game. So, I love the matchup. I love the game script. He's getting used a lot, and he's just a straight-out beast. So 8,800, I'm going to make him a focus to get him into my cash lineup especially, but tournaments as well. I think this is a phenomenal spot for him. But again, it's tough because we got to find some value. Hopefully you can touch on some because I'm not really seeing much of this running back spot in terms of value. I like a lot of these top guys.
Yeah, we'll get into some of the value plays that I was looking at. I think we're going to need some Friday injury news to really break our way for some pure value. But one dude I was looking at the top, and just to save a couple dollars, just the price difference between the two isn't too big on DraftKings, 8,800 for Henry and then 8,400 for Kamara this week. But the price tag difference between FanDuel, $10,200 for Henry and $9,000 for Kamara, even though it's a PPR format, half-point PPR format on FanDuel, I might have to take the savings this week. Not too much value this week, but Kamara's definitely bounced back last week after a disappointing week 2. Last week, he rushed the ball for 24 times for 89 yards and 4 targets with 3 catches and a touchdown. While that's not the target share that you really want to see out of Kamara, I think this is going to be a really good spot against the New York Giants. He could have had a monster week last week if Taysom Hill didn't vulture a rushing touchdown. Kamara has had at least 80 yards and a touchdown in 2 of the first 3 games to open up this season. So I kind of like Kamara on FanDuel as a point per dollar saving compared to Henry. Brady, who else are you looking to pay up for? I would say in the hybrid mid-range options.
Yeah, kind of in that, top-ish, mid-range-ish range. I do like Najee Harris. I've been playing him, it seems like, week after week, and I think I'm going to go back to him here going against Green Bay. And he had a massive 19 targets last week. And, of course, that's not going to happen again this week, but he does get involved quite a bit in the passing game, 27 total targets on the year. That's an average of 9 per week, and I do like that quite a bit. So he is pretty cheap, 6,800. The Steelers' offense in general, Ben Roethlisberger in general, they have not been looking that great, but they're involving him. He's on the field. He's pretty much the only running back on the field the entire game for the most part. And at 6,800, a guy that's going to get used that much, I don't mind, taking some more shots on him. He had a very good game last week. Pittsburgh is projected to be trailing against Green Bay, which lead to more targets. And like I said, I'm not expecting, 19 targets, but I'd be happy with 8, 9, or 10,
Najee Harris might be discount Alvin Kamara. I feel like they play very similar. In the 5K range, I was looking at Chuba Hubbard with Christian McCaffrey being out for the next couple of weeks and definitely for this slate. Chuba Hubbard is going to get the start this week. I will say Dallas's defense has looked a little bit better, but I think Chuba Hubbard, just this price tag alone at $5,900, I feel like he could pay off in the receiving game. You could see right there, 5 targets, 2 receptions, 11 attempts for 52 yards. Last year, when Christian McCaffrey got hurt, we were slamming Mike Davis into the lineups. Yeah. So you know what to do. It's Chuba Hubbard time. $5,900 on DK and $6,300 on FanDuel this week. He is the cover boy of the video for a reason. I'm going to be having a lot of Chuba Hubbard in my lineups.
Yeah, I was curious to hear your take on Hubbard, and then I look at the cover of the video, and it's Hubbard, so I'm like, okay, we're on the same page here. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to have a lot of Hubbard this week, one of my favorite plays, especially at 5,900.
Who else in the mid-range, I would say in the 5K range that you're really looking at?
Yeah, in terms of like injury news, if Henderson's out, I do have some interest in Sony Michel going against Arizona. Highest total on the slate, where the Rams are actually 4-point favorites. So positive game script, highest total on the slate. And he had 20 rushing attempts last week, and he also had 3 receptions. So you take a look at what he did last week, and it may not look like he did, that great. He had about 10 DraftKings points, but take a look at who he played, right? He played the Buccaneers, who have one of the best, if not the best, run defense in the league. He was still able to get 67 rushing yards. He was able to get 3 receptions as well with 12 yards there. So, yeah, I'm going back to Sony Michel if Henderson is out. If Henderson does play, I'll probably have some interest in Henderson, but I hope he doesn't play because Sony Michel 5,200, I think there's a ton of value there.
Hey, Billy.
One thing what's up?
Before you get to the next one, we got our first actual trade question. So,
Oh, my bad, man. I had the commercials pulled up, so I haven't really been paying attention to the chat too much. Make sure you hit the like button if you're here. I will pull up the chat as soon as we get done. The running back position, but James Zoo, sorry if I'm jacking up your last name, said, should I trade Damien Harris for Hubbard? I'm a desperate CMC owner with horrible running backs, but great wide receivers. I could get somebody like Cooks, Evans, Julio, Chase. Yeah, and if you can give me, am I reading this right? Jamar Chase and Hubbard for Damien Harris, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Jamar Chase for Damien Harris?
No, how am I supposed to read that, Big Show? Like
I think he's saying that he has them as wide receivers, so he's pretty comfortable at wide receiver. So even if he needed to throw in a wide receiver, he could get somebody if he needed to.
Then get rid of Mike Evans.
Come on. Yeah, man, I have McCaffrey as well, and I was able to pick up Hubbard on the waiver wire. Not cheap, but I got Hubbard there, so that should help me a bit.
Well, sorry, James Wu, if I messed up that a little bit, but hopefully we can answer your question for you. Around that same exact range, though, as Sony Michel was Trey Sermon, San Francisco 49ers running back. I know Kyle Uzurek was used a lot last week, but I don't think that repeats itself. Seattle this year has been bleeding points to the running back position. Trey Sermon had a pretty good workload last week, all things considering. And if Elijah Mitchell is out again this week, I feel like we can get a good Trey Sermon game at $5,000 and a pretty high over-under, and it correlates pretty well in a lot of stacks. This is one of my games I'm going to highly target, giving you a quick preview of what we have in store for Friday. Brady, is there anybody else in the 5K range that you're looking at or maybe below?
Yeah, there is a couple more. David Montgomery going against Detroit here. They are 2.5-point favorites. Really low total, though, at 42 points. And, the Bears looked horrible last week. The Bears in general, Montgomery didn't do much as well. But they played the Cleveland defense, which is going to be a lot better defense than Detroit here, who is one of the worst defenses in the league. I think they're going to be using David Montgomery here quite a bit. He's really like the only running back that plays on the field for the most part. And at that price tag, it just seems a little bit too cheap here. Again, he had a very terrible game, as did the Bears did last week, but it's a completely different matchup. And you take a look at what he did in week 1 against the Rams, who has a very good defense, 16 rushing attempts. He also had a reception as well, so 17 total touches in the week 1. And he also had 20 rushing attempts and 3 receptions, 23 total targets in week 2. If you give me, 20 touches in this game against Detroit, a game they're favored in, I'm going to be very, very happy at that price tag.
Yeah, that's one that I was looking at in the beginning of the week, but I don't ever want to seem like a meteorologist or anything like that. But if there is any type of weather concerns and we have Justin Fields back there, I'm just going to be off of it, man. But early on, not weather considerations, I do like Montgomery. That would be my favorite play in that game. But overall, I think that's just a bad game environment. I like Montgomery, but I just don't like that game environment. But we're going to get into our second commercial. Shout outs to the boss man himself. If you're ever in the San Antonio area in Texas, make sure you visit Southtown 101. I'm here with Brady. We're going over the wide receiver position for week 4, NFL, DraftKings, and FanDuel. I'm going to start it off with, one thing that killed me last week was I was too highly invested into Tyreek Hill. That boy owes me some money, and I'm going to have to go right back to the well this week. Tyreek Hill, $8,000, $8,200 on FanDuel this week. This is just a smash spot. If you look at Tyreek Hill, has not really played well the last 2 weeks, but the target share is always going to be there, and he's definitely due for a blowout game. And, being the Eagles fan, I just know the reality of how things go. Big plays are going to get let up, and Tyreek Hill is going to absolutely smash this week at $8,000. But, Brady, who are you looking up at as the high-tier wide receiver that you would like to pay up for?
Yeah, I think Hill's definitely a good call. I think he's more than due. I actually thought he was due last week for a bounce back game. So this week, he is definitely due. But for me, up top, it's between two guys. The first one being Cooper Kupp. He's just been phenomenal, right? 11 targets, averaging 11 targets this year, and he has 5 touchdowns thus far. He's been dominant, averaging 32.4 DraftKings points, and he's going against Arizona. Really good matchup. Highest total on the entire slate at 55 points. I like Cooper Kupp quite a bit, but in that same price range, it's going to be Davante Adams for only $100 more. And if you would have told me that Davante Adams is only $100 more at the beginning of the year, I would have called you nuts. But no, he is. He's 7,900, averaging 22.6 DraftKings points. He had a massive 18 targets last week. I think this is going to be the cheapest Davante Adams has been all year. I'm definitely going to take advantage of that. Going against Pittsburgh, who, very solid defense, but as we know, Davante Adams is one of those guys that is just matchup proof, one of those guys that is going to get the ball no matter who he's really playing. So it's a tough one, man. I mean, up top, I really like Kupp and I really like Adams. I can't decide which one to go with, or if not both.
I don't blame you. One thing that I got to figure out this week is, do I want to play Davante Adams or do I want to play Aaron Jones in my lineups this week? One guy that we didn't really talk about the running back position, but maybe Aaron Jones is the guy that I want to go with in the mid-range. But we're on the wide receiver position as I started digressing a little bit. But you talked about it earlier. Stephon Diggs, I think he's going to be a little bit too low owned considering that price tag at $7,600. I think that's a really good price tag for Stephon Diggs this week, and $8,000 on FanDuel. To be honest with you, he hasn't really blown up too much this year, but he's been pretty consistent. Once he gets that receiving touchdown like he did in week 2 and a 100-yard game, I feel like this could be the week that we could see it all against the Houston Texans defense, which is absolutely horrific. Their secondary can definitely be lit up, and Buffalo Bills have, I think, the highest team total on the slate this week?
Buffalo Bills and the Cardinals, yep.
I was just talking about team totals in general. I feel like that's one of the highest team totals that I can remember seeing this week. But in the wide receiver range, in the low 7K to high 6Ks, who are you looking at?
Yeah, so DJ Moore is something that really does stick out. So like I said, there's no McCaffrey, which should help Moore here in general, and he's averaging 10 targets already. Yeah, and the Cowboys defense is actually a lot better than I expected them to be. They're not horrible, but they're not great at the same time. You have a 15.5 point total, where Carolina are 4-point dogs. So they're going to be throwing the ball more than likely if they do fall behind. And I think DJ Moore is somebody that has looked phenomenal. I don't really get this price point, right? 6,600. He's averaging 20.3 DraftKings points, factoring in no CMC as well. I think DJ Moore is going to have a great day here against Dallas.
I wonder if DraftKings is sucking me in this week because I really like this game as a mini stack, but we'll talk more about that on Friday. But man, there's just a lot of price tags that stick out in that game. But one dude I was looking at in the mid-range, way too cheap on FanDuel, but I don't mind him either on DraftKings, is Terry Scary McLaurin this week going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Taylor Heineke, man. I think this is the good spot for Taylor Heineke. He hasn't looked too bad so far. If you look at Taylor Heineke's DK, he's his first 3 weeks on DK this year, he's put up over 20 points in each of those games. And I think this is the week that Scary Terry goes off like he did in that primetime game against the New York Giants. I really like this matchup for him, and I really like that price tag on FanDuel. $7,100 for Scary Terry is very affordable for me this week, the way I kind of build out my lineups pretty early this week. Brady, who are you looking at in the mid-range on DraftKings? I would say mid 6K to 5K.
So Brandon Cooks is interesting. I like this more as like a run back option for my Buffalo Bills stacks, and I'm going to have a lot of. But Brandon Cooks has been getting it done. And although Houston is not a great team at all, He's averaging 22.6 DraftKings points, a little over 10 targets per game as well. So they are getting him the ball, and they're going to be 16-point underdogs. So you got to expect they're going to go down early. They're going to be trying to come back. They're going to pass the ball a lot. And I think Brandon Cooks is going to be heavily involved, no matter how bad the Houston Texans offense is, no matter how bad the team is in general. Brandon Cooks is a very solid player himself, and he's been getting it done. So 6,400, I like that a lot. But yeah, more as a run back option for my Bill stacks.
Yeah, I definitely don't blame you with that one. Getting into the 5K range, one price tag that kind of stood out to me this week was Robert Woods. Like you said, Cooper Kupp, his price tag went up this week. But man, if you look at it on FanDuel, my man Cooper Kupp is the highest priced wide receiver on the slate. I didn't really touch too much on it, but I got to play Robert Woods just because of the price tag difference between the two. I get it. Cooper Kupp has looked like Megatron for Stafford this year, but Robert Woods hasn't looked too shabby himself. Pretty high point total in this game. I do like me some Robert Woods at $5,300. That's a pretty cheap price tag, and it fits a lot of the things that I want to do for this weekend. Another dude I was looking at in that 5K range was Courtland Sutton, Denver Broncos wide receiver. For an overall broad view scheme of things on the slate, it's not the best game environment, but micro-wise, I think this is a good game environment for the Denver Broncos passing offense to do pretty good work. Teddy Bridgewater has looked pretty good this year, and I think Courtland Sutton's going to be the main beneficiary of the wide receiver injuries that's been happening to the Broncos. I believe, what is his name? KJ Hamler also got hurt last week. So I do like me some Courtland Sutton, $5,700, $6,300 on FanDuel. Who else are you looking at the 5K range on DK this week?
Yeah, I'm on Robert Woods as well. Last week, I kind of did the thing where, Kupp's so much more expensive. I went down and played Woods, and it didn't really work out. Only had 6.8 DraftKings points. But, yeah, it's just a huge price difference, right? $5,300 for Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp is $7,800. So I don't blame you whatsoever for taking a shot on Woods, especially, hopefully he's low-owned as well, because that makes me like him even more. But down in this range, Cole Beasley, somebody that sticks out to me, and this is more of like a cash game play. I think he's very safe. I think Emmanuel Sanders is fine as well, but I'm just high on this Bills offense this week in general, and he has a massive 10 targets on average between 3 games. So that's huge, right? That's huge at his price tag at $5,400. I like Cole Beasley quite a bit. If they're going to pass in the ball 10 times per game at that price tag, I'm going to be all over it. And then the other guy that does stick out, Odell Beckham Jr. for Cleveland going against Minnesota, 51.5 point total. He did come back, made his first start last week, scored 13.7 DraftKings points, had 9 targets. I thought he looked really good. And yeah, Odell Beckham, 5,800. He's looking healthy. He's looking good. And at that price tag, I'm willing to go right back to him here against Minnesota. Those are the two guys that's kind of sticking out in that 5K range for me.
Another price tag that I thought that was pretty cheap when I first looked over the slate, kind of correlates with your Hurts take earlier, was Devonta Smith. He looked really bad against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football, but I think that was more of just Hurts' efficiency. But if you just look at the target share for Devonta Smith, he's been Hurts' number 1 target, and he leads the Eagles in targets this year. And I think there's going to be some points scored in this game. And if they are dealing with a negative game script, I could definitely see Devonta Smith going from $5,700 on DraftKings this week to being a low 6K range type of receiver. So I think there's a little bit of a price value, but I would say my favorite cash game receiver on the slate for me this week is going to have to be Jalen Waddle, dog. Jalen Waddle has been absolutely hooping this year. He's even in a pretty crowded wide receiver core that's pretty talented. Jalen Waddle has been hooping. Yes, I'm saying hooping in football terms. He currently leads the team in both targets and receptions with 26 targets and 22 receptions. With Tua being hurt, he kind of benefited from Brissett being in there. While I don't think Brissett's as talented as Tua, but you just can't deny the chemistry, I guess. 13 targets for him last week when Brissett was under center. The Colts defense has given up the 7th most PPR fantasy points to wide receivers and 7 touchdowns, which is tied for the highest in the NFL. Jalen Waddle at $4,900 seems like an absolute smash spot in cash games, and I don't understand his price tag.
Yeah, so that was actually the last guy I was going to talk about in Waddle. Yeah, 4,100. And you take a look at Waddle and then you go down and look at the rest of the available wide receivers, and just nobody really sticks out this week. So in terms of finding value, Waddle was the most valuable wide receiver on the slate for me, at least. You mentioned it, 13 targets last week, 8 targets in week 2. They're getting him the ball. And if you're going to give me, around 10 targets, 4,900, I'm all over that.
Yeah, I when I saw that price tag come up as 4,900 on DraftKings, I was like, sheesh, for Jalen Waddle, man. I thought he'd be like low 6K type of guy. But another price tag that kind of stood out to me this week was Brandon Ayuk, and I wanted to ask you because you talked about it. Was it week 2 or was it week 3? You said he was going to bounce back.
I think it was week 2 when I talked about it.
Do you like Brandon Ayuk here in this spot? I think it's a good game environment. $5,000 is a pretty cheap price tag for how good that he looked last week. Man, I don't know what to really do with this one, Brady. Do you have any interest in Brandon Ayuk due to the price tag and just the stacking options in that game?
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk is somebody that I've always been high on. Just in general, I think he's very good. He went out there in week 1 and had 0 targets, 0 receptions. I think they were saying he's dealing with an injury or something. And then week 2, basically the same thing. He had 2 targets, 1 reception. But yeah, week 3, it looks like he finally showed up to start the season against Green Bay. 6 targets, 4 receptions. So if Ayuk is healthy, if he is himself, 5,000 does seem way too cheap for him. So I do like that you brought that up. I don't know if I'll get there, but man, you make a good point that this really might be the week where we should be on Brandon Ayuk, because if he does it again, if he has another good game like he did last week, I can guarantee you he's not going to be 5K, right?
Yeah, man. I just not even talking about Friday yet, but just going over some of the pieces in that game. It just seems like a game that really works out on this slate the way that we don't really have value, but we have the value from the 49ers and the pay up options for the Seahawks. It kind of works out pretty early, but Cole Pierce has a question. He says, starts Henry Ruggs or Marvin Jones this week? Well, Cole Pierce, this is an easy question for me to answer. Marvin Jones all day over Henry Ruggs. I'm a Brian Edwards truther, so you're not going to hear Henry Ruggs' name on this podcast. Brady, who would you pick in that one?
Marvin Jones, and it's really not even close.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not a crazy person. Was there any other wide receivers that you're looking at? I remember last week we were talking about KJ Osborne a little bit, and DraftKings is just putting the bait right there and telling us to play it again at $3,700. Do you have concerns with the performance last week? Because if there is ever a game this looked decent in, it would be that how many points were scored in that Seahawks game last week against the Vikings.
Yeah, that was a concern, right? But no, I mean, I don't know if I'll go back to him, especially against Cleveland here. It was like Jefferson week last week, but yeah, they are putting the bait out there, man. I mean, he had one bad game; the rest were pretty good games there. Only 2 targets, 2 receptions. So I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna go back. He hurt me bad last week, but maybe he shows up again.
Yeah, I was the only other receiver that really caught my eye price tag wise under 4K. But let's get into the tight end position. If there's any wide receivers, we'll touch about them on Friday's show. But the tight end position leading off at the top, Travis Kelce, $8,100, $8,200. Don't really need to talk about Travis Kelce too much. If you can afford Travis Kelce, play Travis Kelce. If you can't afford Travis Kelce, then you probably shouldn't play Daily Fantasy, because Travis Kelce might smash. Him and Tyreek Hill, one of those two is going to have a really optimal breaking the slate type of game, and I definitely want parts of it with Mahomes this week. If you didn't pay up for Kelce, though, Brady, who would you pay for it this week?
Well, I am going to be paying up for Kelce, so I just want to talk about Kelce real quick, man. I mean, this is a spot where I'm going to be very high on him this week. I was high on him last week as well, and I had him in my single entry, right? And I was pissed that he only scored 20 DraftKings points. That's how good this guy is. I was pissed that he only scored 20 DraftKings points. That was like a floor game for Kelce. So I'm going right back to him here. And the reason why is because not much sticks out, right? Like for me, I just see myself going up to get Kelce in the majority of my lineups. Other than that, George Kittle, 5,900. He is questionable. I do expect him to play. Kittle, you do get a huge savings off of Kelce, but he only has 18 targets this year, which it's not like Kittle. They're not really getting the ball as much as you'd like to see. So Kittle in the mid range for me. Other than that, I just see myself going up and paying for Kelsey for the most part. And then in terms of like punting down, so for me, it's either Kelsey up top, Kittle in the middle, or down below, it's Evan Ingram, this is going to be a really sneaky play. He's $3K. He's very, very cheap. You don't need much to hit value here. 6 targets in his first game back. And the whole Giants wide receiver core 3 is like really beat up. Some even may not play. So especially if some of those guys do not play, I like Evan Ingram even more. So that's my sneaky tight end play of the week, but it's Kelsey for me for the most part.
I'll give you that, man. I would give you that. If you would have told me before the show that you would have said Evan Ingram, man, I would be one broke man right now because I did not think those words are going to come out of your mouth. I thought, oh, man. But other tight ends, I would guess I could say that you could look at. Since we're in the dart throw, let's just continue this. Then Dawson Knox, $4,000, $5,600 on FanDuel, kind of fits with your Josh Allen take earlier. If you want to stack that game, Dawson Knox, man, I'm telling you, man, he's been looking all right this year. And then the other one I was looking at was Austin Hooper. I talked about it on Friday's show, and when he caught the touchdown, man, you're just hearing "whoo" from the Brisbane household because Hooper almost cashed us some big time money, but the rest of the lineup didn't work out. But isn't that daily fantasy how it always goes? And then I would say Logan Thomas, would be the only other tight end I was looking at, but it's really Travis Kelce for me. It's back in the day. Remember in I would say 2016. You would see Rob Gronkowski on the slate, and the question of the slate was like, so you're going to play Gronk or you're not going to play Gronk? And it's like, well, if I'm playing daily fantasy, I'm going to find the money to play Gronk.
Yeah, and then the other one, I guess Tyler Higbee could be good, 4,600. I do like him. I do like this Rams team in general going against Arizona. One of the highest totals on the slate. So Higbee stuck out, 15 DraftKings points last week. Did disappoint a lot of people in week 2, but he did bounce back last week.
Yeah, I like that call. Dalton Schultz. You
guys might be
tight end.
Yeah, two touchdowns last game, right? Playing Carolina.
I just don't think he scores 2 touchdowns again in a game.
I'll bet you he scores 2 in a game.
I agree with you, though, Big Show.
I think you're just
not going to make that bet with the Dallas Cowboys offense. It's crazy.
True, he is cheap, though. 3,400.
He is cheap, though. I will give you that, Big Show. And it kind of fits with the stacks. I've been harping up on stacks. I feel like if we're getting into the Friday show already, but Carolina Panthers game, Big Show is giving you the nuts right there. Dalton Schultz might be a part of that stack at a pretty cheap option. Big Show, don't give away the rest of my lineup. But let's go over defenses real quick before my Grubhub delivery gets here. Time is of the essence here. 3 defenses that I was looking at this week was the Tennessee Titans, 4,900 against the New York Jets. That just seems like a smash spot against Zach Wilson. The other one was the Green Bay Packers, $4,200. My question to you, Brady, is do you think Big Ben is dust?
Yeah.
Because that price tag on the Packers this week, $3,300. My bad, I jacked up the price tag on that one. It's $4,200 on FanDuel. But if Big Ben really is dust, I think the Packers defense is kind of appealing at $3,300 on DraftKings.
No, he's more than dust, man. He looks horrible. It's sad to watch.
It's honestly kind of sad to watch. It kind of reminds me of Drew Brees last year, just watching the decline of the talent of Drew Brees. There was a play last week that Big Ben hiked the ball, tried to run out the pocket, and he tripped over his own feet and he just fell. And I was like, oh man, I might have to get rid of some of my dynasty shares of Najee Harris because that offensive line and the quarterback. But this is not a dynasty show. What defenses are you looking at this week, Brady?
Yeah, so me, I typically like paying down for defense. I'm looking at the Lions defense going against Chicago here. Like you said, the weather, if the weather is indeed bad, I like this even more, and it's already the lowest total on the slate, I believe, at 42 points there. So the Lions, for me, the Bears looked horrible last week, to say the least. Just in everybody on the Bears looked horrible last week. The offensive line looked bad. Of course, Fields looked bad. They looked bad in general. So Lions defense at 2,200. If I was to pay up, it probably would be the Bills defense going against Houston, 16-point favorites. Very expensive. I don't see myself doing that, but if I had the salary, I'd probably go to the Bills. But yeah, down low, I do like Lions, especially if there's going to be some weather concerns.
Yeah, no, I do kind of like that one. I think Friday we'll dedicate just a little bit of extra time to defenses and try to dig into a couple of good defenses and try to get a little player pool going. But first look, that's kind of really what I was looking at on the slate. Brady, is there anything on the slate that we talked about? I mean, that we haven't talked about already that you think that we're missing on?
I think we covered everything pretty good for a first look. We got some players out there, and then we'll come back Friday and give some stacks and some lineup construction, some more strategy.
Yeah, we'll definitely maybe we'll do a little thing at the end of Friday video and do like a lineup on DraftKings or FanDuel, time consideration depending. But that's really it for this video. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out. Like Connor Mack said, smash the like button. Have a nice evening and good luck to all your bets this week. And Brady, don't die this week, man. You got to push through. The content grind is definitely going to hit you by the end of this week.
Yep, have a lot of stuff to do after this. It's gonna be tough, but yeah, I gotta get through it.
Well, if they want to find out what kind of stuff you're doing, where can they find you at, Brady?
Yep, YouTube DFS by the numbers. Got some MMA content coming very soon. About done researching the card in full, and then Twitter DFS_numbers. So yeah, lots going on. Got my core plays video out for NFL. And I'll be getting out my full player pool video probably Friday or Saturday. And of course, we'll be back here on Friday, and then on Sunday. I'm back with Uncle Weezy for Stat Diggers. Can't wait to get back into the next week's card. So that should be fun as well. So yeah, tons of stuff going on. But I love it. I love the grind.
Yeah, and if you want to check out Brady's show from last night, the DraftKings show, make sure you scroll back into the videos. That's why it's always vital to have the bell notification on the Pub Sports Radio videos. And if you would like to find me at Getting Bills on Twitter, you already know MMA is this week. We got a Bellator event Friday. Make sure you follow the Twitter account for the Bellator plays because I'm trying to nail the bookies right across the head. We are out, though. We be pubbing.
You guys.